Chapter 397 Fighting furiously against the beast tide. Elder Song looked at Bei from the corner of her eyes. While she felt that something was amiss, she did not probe further. This was not the time for her to pursue the matter. Shenliner, the Valkyrie Douluo, asked in a low voice. Mom, are you alright? Elder Song shook her head and said, this Emerald Swan is powerful. Indeed. With her pure auxiliary abilities, my attacks are unable to hurt her. In terms of cultivation, she is more powerful than me. She's almost as powerful as an ultimate Douluo. With her present, the beast tide's strength is almost tripled. It's a shame that there's no way for me to ambush and kill her. Shenliner asked, do you know how long Elder Sun and Elder Mu can trap the DTN? Elder Song shook her head and said, I don't know. Only the masters of the Sea God's Pavilion know the secrets of the Golden Tree. However, with the immense power stored in the Golden Tree, it won't be hard for it to seal DTN for at least 3 days. This means that in these 3 days, we have to either push the beast tide back, or hope that rescue will come soon. Have we sent out the distress calls? Shenliner nodded and said, we have sent out distress calls to the 3 empires already. The beast tide came too suddenly. Furthermore, the 3 empires are focusing their strength on fighting the Sun Moon Empire. Their armies are all massed there, so it will be hard for help to come quickly. This time, we're really in a pickle. Right now, the situation is fine for now, but once the soul tools have been completely depleted and this fight comes to close quarters, we'll be in serious trouble. Elder Song sighed and said, the only thing we can do is press on and wait for reinforcements. The launch of a beast tide by the Great Stardow Forest should not be our business. However, if Shrek City is overrun, chaos and destruction will reign. While it's important to fight the Sun Moon Empire, internal stability is important, too. The damage caused by such a huge beast tide is not something that the 3 empires can bear. With the position of the Great Stardow Forest, no one knows where the beast tide will surge next. I believe that the 3 empires will make their own decisions. The only problem now is the timing of the reinforcements. I hope that in the next 3 days, the first wave of reinforcements will be able to arrive. Shenliner said, I hope so, too. The savage beasts are sly, indeed. Among the 5 of them, other than the beast god DTN and this Emerald Swan, the other 3 cannot be found. They did not send out any high-level soul beasts. Evidently, they're using the ordinary soul beasts to weaken us, and saving their strength while waiting for a better opportunity. Elder Song said in a low voice, we must conserve our strength. Once the powerful soul beasts join the fray, we'll face even more pressure. Please have 2 of the members of the Sea God's Pavilion stay behind. The rest can go to the barracks for rest. Stay alert. Since they don't want to send out their best, we'll send Tidal Douluo out to fight once every hour. They can meditate afterwards to replenish their soul power. Each time, we'll send out 4 Tidal Douluo. The rest will rest when they're not on shift. Don't they want to play a game of attrition? They're eating away at our foundations, while we'll be eating away at the lives of their soul beasts. I want to see who'll give up first. We from Shrek Academy have a 10,000-year-old foundation, something they can't defeat so easily. Yes, Shenliner replied, and went to make the arrangements. In the absence of Elder Sun, Elder Song's rank was the highest. However, she would not command the troops personally. Instead, she would be commanding the powerhouses and experts participating in the battle. The moment Elder Song issued her orders, the first one to carry them was Shizing, the city defense officer of Shrek City. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. The clear sound of a stopwatch was audible. A huge silver plate hung suspended in midair. It only had a second hand, which moved slowly. Every soul beast that was within 250 meters of Shrek City's city walls started to slow down. Despite the Emerald Swan's healing and support, they continued to move sluggishly. A mysterious black gas started to appear in this area. When the black gas appeared, starlight started to flash mysteriously within 250 meters of the city walls. The area emptied out, and every single soul beast in the area disappeared. Only some of the more powerful ones near the edges were able to escape. Shizing, the time Douluo, had a space-time silver plate for his martial soul. Not only was he able to control time, but his powers even extended to space itself. He was able to control both time and space, to a certain extent. Only he knew why he was called the time Douluo. Sometimes one could not believe the titles of Tidal Douluo. Craftier ones would purposely use their own titles to confuse their opponents. Space-time turbulence. This was the power Shizing had just used. This power enveloped an area with a radius of 250 meters. Even if there was a soul beast every 5 meters, 100 soul beasts would have disappeared from the battlefield in the blink of an eye. Those who were left were at least 10,000-year soul beasts. This attack created a huge opening for them. This happened extremely quickly, and was very strange. It was so jarring that the soul beasts, who were charging forward non-stop, seemed confused by it, and their charge slowed visibly. In the next instant, a ball of red light shot into the air. A huge number of red clouds surged into the sky. A powerful attack was about to be launched. In the skies above the army of soul beasts, Bai the Emerald Swan had an ugly expression on her face. They had grossly underestimated the strength of the humans. 100 years ago, during that beast tide, Shrek City's defenses were much weaker than they were now. In just 100 years, the humans were able to develop so many defenses. They were even able to seal DTN. While they did not know how long DTN would be sealed, his absence greatly affected the soul beast's morale. Noticing that another Tidal Douluo was about to attack, Bai did not dare to be slow. She opened her jade green wings, and a shapeless barrier appeared in midair. It tried to block the airborne soul skills. Faced with the blockade of red clouds, one's natural response would be to advance skyward. This move was unleashed by someone who was at least a Tidal Douluo. While Bai was powerful, even she had to tread carefully. However, the red clouds had yet to show their offensive prowess. The Juga divine crossbow cannons on the city walls roared once more, and a huge amount of cannon shells landed down below. They burst open in the middle of a group of soul beasts. Shizing looked at another old woman far away and clasped his hands before giving her a thumbs up. The old woman wearing a long red dress smiled faintly. The red clouds in the air floated around, but they showed no sign of attacking. Bai's heart sank. She stretched another hand out, and her healing abilities enveloped the area. However, she felt that her efforts were lackluster. The humans were crafty, indeed. The soul beasts could not match their coordination. This was the most troublesome part. The beast tide had just started, but their losses exceeded their projections and estimates. If this continued, how many more soul beasts would die? However, according to DTN's plan, the other powerful soul beasts of the Great Stardow Forest, other than her, could not take part in the assault yet. It was far more important for the core of their fighting force to remain in the Great Stardow Forest. They could not lose them easily. Only after Shrek had been exhausted to a certain extent could they deal them a finishing blow. Even the other members of her kind were not allowed to enter the battle. In general, Emerald Swans were not powerful. Other than Bai, the other members of her kind lacked the ability to defend themselves. Once they joined the fray, they would become sitting ducks for the powerful students of Shrek Academy. The battle continued, and the advantages and disadvantages of the Great Stardow Forest became more obvious. Millions of soul beasts lived in the vast forest. There were many of them, and as long as they were at least 10 years old, they were able to fight. In other words, almost every single soul beast was participating in this battle. Instructed by the higher rank soul beasts, they had no thought to resist. All they did was charge ahead and attack. The first assault ended after only 6 hours. The plains to the south of Shrek City were heaped with carcasses. These carcasses were brought away by the soul beasts the moment they issued the order to retreat because they could still serve as food for the other soul beasts. This was the brutal law of the jungle, where one was either predator or prey. To the south of Shrek City, all one could see was destruction and desolation. Entire swathes of land were scorched black. One could see holes in the ground, trenches, and multicolored bloodstains from different soul beasts. It was a horrific scene. However, to Shrek City, this battle was undoubtedly a victory. While there were a few human casualties, most of whom were killed by long-range attacks from the soul beasts, less than 10 humans had died in this battle. Fewer than 100 of them had been injured. On the other hand, they had killed at least 5,000 soul beasts. Those soul beasts who died were killed in a single blow. Almost all of those who were injured were healed by Bai. Without her, the casualties incurred by the soul beast army would have at least doubled. The main problem facing Shrek City was that they lacked manpower, especially soul masters. Among the 3,000 soul masters there, most of them had 3 to 5 soul rings. While They had trained for a long time, they were all quite young, and lacked actual battlefield experience. Perhaps this army of 3,000 soul masters could not be matched by any other human force, as they could even rival the Sun Moon Empire's trump card, the Imperial Soul Engineer Legion. However, they were now facing an endless beast tide. All humans would tire eventually, regardless of whether one was a titled Douluo or an ordinary soul master. After this battle, everyone was physically and emotionally drained. Much of their soul power was spent as well. Xing ordered all soul masters to rest immediately. The defense of the city was now entrusted to some ordinary soldiers, who knew when the next beast tide would come. The soul beast army only needed to make some minor adjustments. Perhaps they would return after they had consumed the carcasses of the fallen. The Tang Sect's delivery was completed. There were 21 Juga Divine crossbow cannons in storage, but these were not the custom-made heavy Juga Divine crossbow cannons on the city walls. While they were slightly weaker, these Class 5 Juga Divine crossbow cannons were much more agile. During the 6 hours of battle just now, 5 of the 32 Juga Divine crossbow cannons on the city walls had been put out of action due to overheating. Right now, all Master Sun Wen of the Tang Sect Soul Tool Hall, who had rushed over just in time, was repairing them. Bei Bei and the rest had solemn expressions on their faces. Yue was safe, which was excellent news for them. However, what could they do about the beast tide at the gates? No one knew how long Shrek City could resist this beast tide. While they had not incurred many casualties in the battle just now, many of them were exhausted. Hundreds of sealed milk bottles were being used to replenish their soul power. In this situation, even if they wanted to replenish their soul power, they could not recover all their soul power before the next beast tide. As for the shock bombs, which could only be used once, it was even harder to replenish them. Other than the Juga Divine crossbow cannons, the Tang Sect had also provided more than 110 other soul tools of different types. More importantly, the Tang Sect had also provided 2,152 stationary soul cannon shells. When the elders of the Sea Gods Pavilion saw this figure, they were all shocked. One had to know that this amount of stationary soul cannon shells would cost an astronomical figure. Where did the Tang Sect get its money from? Helpless, Bei Bei could only tell them about how Huo Yuao and the others robbed the Sun Moon Empire's underground storage facility. The elders of Sea Gods Pavilion already knew of how Wang Qiwa sacrificed herself for Huo Yuao. The elders did not say anything at first. The Tang Sect, with its actions, proved their total support for Shrek City. Furthermore, just when Huo Yuao was on the brink of death, an emperor beast had sacrificed herself for him. Could he be blamed for it? While he seemed to be the cause of the beast tide, the elders were reasonable people. None of them blamed him for it. However, this made the Tang Sect, led by Bei Bei, even more determined to fight to the death for Shrek City. For the Tang Sect, for Huo Yuao, and for Shrek, they were Shrek's 7 monsters. Despite lacking 2, there were still 5 of them. They would defend the honor that rightfully belonged to Shrek. The second assault came a bit later than expected. The soul beasts looked tired, too. They had rested for 4 entire hours. The sky was turning dark, and the sun was setting in the west. Only then did the defenders hear the roars of the beasts as innumerable beasts appeared on the other edge of the plain. The soul beasts were not dumb. The more powerful ones were as intelligent as humans. Fighting at night was more disadvantageous for the humans than fighting during the day, as humans were normally not nocturnal beings. In the day, they would be much more focused. Furthermore, the vision of most humans was lower at night than in the day. On the other hand, many soul beasts were nocturnal creatures. Fighting at night was more advantageous for them. After a round of discussion among the savage beasts of the Great Stardow Forest, they decided to launch their second attack under cover of darkness. An endless beast tide surged forth once more toward Shrek City, which was akin to a solitary island in the sea. This time, the soul beasts were even more ferocious. The Juga Divine crossbow cannons boomed once more. Ella Song flew high up in the sky. By relying on her interference, the auxiliary abilities of the Emerald Swan Baiji diminished greatly, and the soul tools in Shrek City were able to do what they did best. The clash between the two sides was turning red hot. The soul masters fought bravely against the soul beasts, who were charging toward them crazily. The outside of Shrek City was akin to a meat grinder, continually devouring the lives of soul beasts. However, the attack of the soul beasts showed signs of improvement. Soul beasts which specialized in long-range attacks were split apart from those who specialized in short-range attacks. The latter charged at the front, and the former supported them from behind as they charged toward the city walls. The soul masters in charge of releasing the protective soul barriers were under immense pressure, as their soul power was rapidly depleting. However, even so, with the support of many sealed milk bottles, they were still able to hold their ground. On the city walls, the number of injured auxiliary soldiers increased, too. Under heavily concentrated attacks, the protective soul barriers would falter at times. When an attack landed on the city, one could hear cries of agony, indicating that there were either casualties or fatalities. The battlefield looked even more brilliant at night. Soul skills of many different colors illuminated the dark sky as they flashed and exploded. If one looked down from the heavens, one could see what was akin to an eye-catching fireworks display. Every single burst of light and color meant that lives had been lost, each display of fireworks ultimately leading to blood. War was cruel. This was the case for war between humans, as well as war between humans and soul beasts. To resist the ferocious beast tide, the students of the inner courtyard entitled Douluo from Shrek Academy took turns to attack, only with them contributing to the soul beasts be suppressed. Balls of intense light appeared on top of the city walls non-stop. Every single student of the inner courtyard guarded his or her post tightly as they did their part in the defense of the city. The intensity of this battle was more than double that of the first. When the beast tide finally receded, dawn broke. The battle had lasted the entire night. It was no longer quiet on the city walls. Moans and cries of pain could be heard everywhere. More than 500 men had been injured or killed. While many of them were just injured, there were at least 100 dead soldiers. Shrek City's city defense army only had around 10,000 men. While this was a casualty figure that was totally acceptable to the soul beasts, Shrek City could not afford so many casualties. Of course, the night of fighting did no good for the soul beasts of the Great Stardow Forest either. They lost more than 20,000 soul beasts, with many 10,000-year soul beasts falling in battle. At night, the light from countless soul rings could be seen very clearly. Together, they formed a peculiar sight, akin to wails of grief from the spirits of the many slain soul beasts. The damage to the Juga Divine crossbow cannons was severe. 14 of them had overheated and could not be used anymore. 3 of them had blown up, and 6 of them were destroyed by long-range attacks from the soul beasts. These were class 6 soul tools. Every single of them cost a great deal of money. The soul beasts hated them deeply, and so they had focus targeted the Juga Divine crossbow cannons. More than half of the Juga Divine crossbow cannons were damaged. The class 5 Juga Divine crossbow cannons supplied by the Tang Sect had to be used. The stationary soul cannon shells played a huge part in the battle at night. Using their long-range attacks, they split up their attacks and helped greatly in suppressing the soul beasts. However, there were now fewer than 2,000 stationary soul cannon shells left, and they could not be replenished instantly. Every single one cost a great deal of money. The look on Sun Wen's face as they were used said it all. And this was just the first day of the beast tide. The loss of soul tools were not as important as the fatigue experienced by the combatants. While they rested for a few hours in between, no one knew when the next beast tide would come. This short rest was not enough to replenish everyone's strength. After that night of fighting, no matter how well-trained Shrek City's city defense army was, every single of them collapsed to the ground, taking in massive breaths of air the moment the battle ended. They all wanted to fill their lungs with air. They were drained, both in terms of soul power and physical strength. Many of them were completely exhausted. All of the sealed milk bottles were depleted after last night's battle, and had to be recharged before they could be used once more. While they had helped many of the 3,000 soul masters maintain at least half of their soul power, the sealed milk bottles could do nothing for their physical and mental fatigue. All soul masters with 6 rings or more were taking turns to rest. No matter how intense last night's battle was, the titled Douluo did not really participate in it. They knew that once they joined the battle and exhausted their soul power to a certain extent, the true powerhouses of the Great Stardow Forest would appear. They could only hold out longer against the beast tide if the titled Douluo remained at peak strength. When would reinforcements come? Right now, Shrek City was completely cut off. While the pride of the soul beasts forced them to continue their attacks against the south gate, the soul beast army had in fact surrounded the entire city. The other 3 walls had all come under attacks of differing intensity. News from the outside world could not enter Shrek City, as only the Sun Moon Empire had long-range communication soul tools. Shrek Academy was still researching them. A solitary city could only fight to the death. The civilians and merchants of Shrek City started to play their part too, delivering food and water. The moment the fighting stopped, various types of food were sent to the top of the city walls. Shrek City was extremely rich, and there was more than enough food stored in the city. A few important merchants led everyone one in providing free and highly nutritious food to the soldiers on the city walls. Many merchants also sent their caravan guards to the city walls. All soul masters in the city were currently under Shrek City's overall command. They did not do so because they were generous, but for their own survival. A fight between humans and soul beasts was different from a fight between humans and other humans. If the enemy was human, civilians and merchants still had a good chance of survival even if the enemy breached the city walls. However, their enemies were soul beasts. Once the soul beasts breached the city walls, the only possible outcome was a bloodbath and massacre. At this moment, no amount of wealth could rival one's life in importance. The merchants showed no stinginess. As long as their items were helpful, they brought them out and sent them to the city walls. The auxiliary soldiers went down into the city to rest. However, Shizing had to firmly instruct all soul masters to remain on the city walls. The soul beast army was too fast. If they waited until the moment they attacked, they would not have time to gather everyone. He issued a death order. No soul master was allowed to sleep. To rest, they could only meditate on the spot. This was the fastest way for them to rest mentally and replenish their strength. Once fighting broke out, they could immediately be sent to the battlefield. The members of the Tang Sect had yet to participate directly in the fight. They had thus far spent more time coordinating the logistical support they had provided. Bei's face was calm as he looked at the soul beast army in the distance. He knew that in the next attack, everyone from the Tang Sect would have to fight, too. No, someone from the Tang Sect had taken part in the fighting already. That was Mosun. Mosun was a pure auxiliary type soul master. From a certain perspective, his role in the fight was similar to Baiji's. However, his auxiliary abilities were not as strong as those of Baiji, the Emerald Swan. Even so, his wide-range auxiliary abilities massively increased the power of the defending soul masters. This had allowed them to fight far better than they would otherwise have been able to. Shizing stood on the city walls with a severe expression on his face. As the city defense officer, his role was the most tiring one. Not only did he have to command his forces, but he also had to personally take part in the fighting, as well as manage the overall situation. He had just finished surveying the city defenses. The situation was not optimistic. Many of his soldiers were exhausted, since the numerical difference in manpower had caused the fight to be uneven since the start. He had no doubt that reinforcements would come. Other than the many talented individuals Shrek Academy had nurtured over all these years, most of whom were now in high positions in the Three Empires. The close relationship between Shrek Academy and the Three Empires meant that they had no option but to save the academy. The beast hide from the Great Stardow Forest was not just Shrek City's problem. If Shrek City fell, all of mankind would be in trouble. The reason why the soul beasts from the Great Stardow Forest chose to attack Shrek was to eliminate this powerful rallying point of mankind. While it might seem dumb to attack the greatest strength of one's foe, was there anything wrong with the soul beasts' decision? Shrek City was a hard nut to crack. However, this nut was located at the center of the Three Empires and had intimate ties with the original Three Empires of the Douluo continent. Since their inception, they had always played an important role in the history of the continent. While Shrek Academy was just a school, it was the #1 school in the world and was fully capable of managing the ties between the three countries. If the beast hide were to strike one of the other countries first, they would indeed be able to reap some benefits at the start, but their rear flank would be exposed to Shrek City. When that happened, Shrek Academy could organize the armies of the Three Empires, which, under the leadership of the powerful soul masters from Shrek Academy, could inflict heavy casualties on the soul beast army. More importantly, if Shrek City was cruel enough, they could attack the Great Stardow Forest straight away. What would the soul beast army do then? That was their home and their final shield. They were not scared of ordinary armies, but Shrek City had too many powerful soul masters. Their destructive powers could not be rivaled by any ordinary army. Hence, even after 100 years, the first target of the beast tide was still Shrek City. As long as they could overrun Shrek City, it would be extremely difficult for the three human empires to form an army that could successfully resist them. The soul beasts knew this, so how could the three original empires of the Douluo continent not know it? Hence, they had to render aid to Shrek City. However, no one knew how long it would take for reinforcements to arrive. Ordinary soldiers were useless against a beast tide. Only an army formed from powerful soul masters could help Shrek Academy resist the beast tide. However, for them to form such a powerful army, they would need time. Could Shrek City hold out until then? Dark thoughts crossed Shizing's mind. This time, the soul beast army was determined. The overnight attack had exhausted a lot of Shrek City's resources. Resources, however, were secondary to manpower. He estimated that when the next assault came, it would devolve into a brawl. Once they started to fight at close range, the number of casualties would skyrocket. This would drain Shrek City even faster. He feared that just one day from now, the powerful hidden soul beasts would attack. At that time, could Shrek City still stand? He understood these principles. However, he also knew that this was no time to think about them. What he could do right now was lead Shrek City's city defense army to buy more time. Fortunately, the Tang Sect had provided many stationary soul cannon shells to provide assistance. If not, the fight would have become a close quarters brawl even sooner. The remaining 2,000 stationary soul cannon shells were Shrek Academy's last resort. While they could not truly turn the tide of the war, they could inflict massive casualties on the soul beasts. The number of soul beasts in the Great Stardow Forest was not infinite. If they incurred too many casualties, the entire ecosystem of the forest would be affected. This was something the savage beasts had to bear in mind, too. There were a few possible methods to force them to retreat. First of all, they could inflict so many casualties on the soul beasts that they had more casualties than they had predicted. This would force them to retreat. However, this was no mean feat. Up to now, between 20 and 30,000 soul beasts had been lost. With emerald swans there, the injured soul beasts could recover quickly. Most of the deaths were 10-year and 100-year soul beasts, who were cannon fodder. Some 1,000-year soul beasts had been injured as well, but very few 10,000-year soul beasts had died. They, however, were the main fighting force of the Great Stardow Forest. Just as Shizing was doing his calculations, a calm voice sounded next to him. Let the Tang Sect take care of the next round. We'll fight for at least 2 hours. Shizing turned his head to look. He saw a middle-aged man with disheveled hair and unkempt clothes. Grease stained his body, and he looked unwell. His sleeves were rolled up. Evidently, he had been working. Who are you? Shizing asked suspiciously. He was familiar with Shrek City, but he did not know this man. However, if he was able to walk up next to him, he must be someone the academy deemed important. I'm the whole master of the Tang Sect Soul Tool Hall, Sun Swen, the middle-aged man said plainly. Sun Swen? When he heard the name, Shizing was shocked. You made the Juga Divine Crossbow Cannons? Sun Swen shook his head and said, No, I didn't invent the Juga Divine Crossbow Cannons, and I was not involved in their manufacture. However, I'm in charge of the Tang Sect Soul Tool Hall. For the next fight, leave it to us. We can hold them off for maybe 2 hours. This will give the troops more time to rest. Shizing finally listened to what he was saying. He replied doubtfully, Are you saying that the Tang Sect will take over the entire defense of Shrek City? Sun Swen's mouth twitched as he replied, Of course not. We don't have enough men. I'm saying that we'll take care of the southern city wall. We can definitely manage for 2 hours. As the city defense officer, Shizing had to be careful. Are you serious? This is no joke. The Soul Beast army is huge. How many people does the Tang Sect have? Sun Swen replied plainly. The Soul Tool Hall of the Tang Sect has 61 members in total. Coupled with the 300 people coming over from the Academy Soul Tool Department, we will have 361 people. Leave it to us. If the city falls, we'll die together. I won't boast in front of you. While Sun Swen only had 8 rings, he showed no fear when talking to a 9-ring titled Douluo. He had been influential even in the Sun Moon Empire, much less now in Shrek City. His pride came from his abilities. Okay, let's leave it to Teacher Sun. At this moment, another voice sounded. The Valkyrie Douluo, Shen Liner, walked over as she agreed to Sun Swen's suggestion. As the Dean of Shrek Academy's Soul Tool Department, no one knew how powerful Sun Swen was more than Shen Liner. She was a Class 8 Soul Engineer too, but she could not even hold a candle to Sun Swen's brilliance. One could say that ever since Sun Swen had joined the Tang Sect, both the Tang Sect's research into soul tools and Shrek Academy's Soul Tool Department had improved by leaps and bounds. Sun Swen had brought countless brand new theories with him, and also helped the Soul Tool Department establish an effective pedagogy. It could be said that he had saved the Soul Tool Department 100 years of research and development. Even the Valkyrie Douluo, a transcendent Douluo, had to call Sun Swen teacher. While Sun Swen did not want to admit it, he was already the Vice Dean of Shrek Academy's Soul Tool Department, and also the Executive Vice Dean. After a period of familiarization, the Soul Tool Department had approved every single one of Sun Swen's proposals. Anyone who dared to block his proposals would face the wrath of the 2 deans, Shen Liner and Chen Duo. With Shen Liner's words, Shizing felt more at ease. He nodded and said seriously, It's up to you. Then, Sun Swen nodded and turned to leave without saying anything else. As Sun Swen walked away, Shizing could not help help but ask Shenliner, Dean Shen, is he capable? Shenliner smiled and said, how did you resist the Soul Beast army just now? Was it through the soul skills of your soul masters? No, it was through soul tools. While many of the soul tools were made by the Academy, most of them were also made by the blood and sweat of the Tang Sect. The few soul tools we used just now could be operated simply by soul masters. Soon, I want to show you the true power of the soul tool department. In a one-on-one fight, a soul engineer will have a disadvantage against a soul master. However, on the battlefield, we soul engineers rule. Why do you think the Sun Moon Empire is so powerful? Their strength comes entirely from their absolute advantage in terms of soul tools. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.